Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to move as slow as possible because I know people get seasick. We have some tripods coming for the cameras, and we're actually going to start doing recording at one time from multiple angles, and I'll splice that all together in this fancy program we got so you guys can get a better video. But right now the focus is, this looks like an average 2990, and it pretty much is. Had the lineage of this radio not been what it is, I probably would have told this gentleman to scrap it. When it came in, it is a mid-generation, and by that I mean it still has regular finals and a TA7222 style audio chip, and 2290s in the back. Now, when this radio came in, the gentleman couldn't talk on it because the receive was so garbled, and it had so many hands in it that and it had the old school 500-pound supply in it. So after looking at, here, this is one thing you got to realize about these service mount board guys. They're throwaways. If you're not real good at repairing service mount components, I'll be honest with you, I'm not yet. I don't like it. I got a $40 pair of tweezers I pull the hairs out of my nose with instead of taking pieces off these frickin' surface mount component radios. So what we did was I took a 2950DX. We removed the second final, just like they would do at the factory, okay? And there are a lot of plugs that need to be transferred over from the original board. Ergo, he's got talkback and whatnot in this one, so there's that, okay? You have to add the keying plug to run the amp. You have to put the SO239 quick disconnects in there, okay? And then you have to figure out how to wire up your external speaker and make it work right. Now, the original complaint was the receive was garbled. After I looked at the chassis, and I'm not going to get you guys dizzy running around the shop looking for it, radio shop only. This was not a repair. This was a rescue restoration. And solely for the sentimental purposes of the gentleman that owns the radio. He does not now. The gentleman that owns the radio at this point. It was his uncle's. He doesn't want to see it go to the parts pile. So, and he's a good customer. So I did something I wouldn't normally do, and that's revamp this thing. Okay? And when I revamped it, I mean, I say revamped. There was nothing in this here. Empty chassis. I had an empty box to start with because everything else was junk. Be very careful who you take your service mount equipment to, gentlemen. There are guys out there who are qualified, who are good, who have the right equipment. I have the right equipment. I have a several $100 soldering air gun, as what you're supposed to use with the different tips, and the tweezers and the glue. But like I said, I don't like it. By the time it's over, I've got my reading glasses on. I'm looking at the board through something like this. That's the only way I can work on these things. I'm old. It's small. Don't call me for a repair on these guys. Even my satellite shop down in Quincy won't touch these. Okay, so, and I train that guy, so I trust him with anything I own. So there's the install. We still have some tying down to do. We're going to get a look at the bottom here. We tried to keep everything looking as nice and neat as Ranger did. Okay, granted, all the wires are not tied right now, but you'll notice, and here on the bottom of the other board, the board we took out of here, when you looked at this kind of stuff, I had to unbridge I don't know how many of these, because guys go in there with an iron where the tip is just too freaking big. Get the right stuff. There's the tip you use for these things, guys. See how small that is? Bam. And I've got one even smaller than that. But you don't use this. The only time you use this iron is on the bottom. When you go back to the top, you should have a professional air heat gun with the downsized nozzles and know where to set your temperature. Have them $40 tweezers ready to pull that bad component out. Because if you leave the air on the board too long, you might as well chunk it. Now here's something else you guys don't realize about these boards. This is what I've been told, and the guy that told me, I believe him. There's going to be problems on this board that you can't fix. This board is laid out a lot like a computer's motherboard, in effect that there are layers of circuits all sandwiched together to make this thing work. It's my understanding it's 4 layers. That's just what I've heard. And looking at the board, I kind of believe it. But what you don't see are the circuits in between all these layers. And if you've got a trace somewhere in between those layers that has opened up or blown apart and short across even though you're talking about microns of space, shit happens. So, all that aside, radio's been completely gutted, rebuilt by my standards. So now let's look at what it does. Where's my D? Here it is. Sorry about the moving around, guys. This is one of the last few videos we're going to do like this. We're going to get some tripods. So now, I've got a standard D104 on it. I did put, I'm going to move very slow here. We did put a standby switch on here, which I truly believe Ranger, Galaxy, whatever it says on the front, should have done from the factory. Because there's going to be times, guys, when you get something like a Pride DX300, DNA 10 tube Phantom, that don't want no freaking 20, 30 watts of carrier and 200 watts of PEP. Okay? That's when you reach over and you shut this back switch off. So right now the switch is off. It has been converted down to a single final drive section, just like Ranger would have done it. Now, if I really want to make this mother humper rock, I could put that third transistor back in right here. Make it a dual final radio again. At that point, I'm going to see 40, 45 watts of PEP. Now, can that be done? Absolutely. But you have to have the presence of mind to go back and bias this fucker down. That's what those you'll notice I left the bias pot in for that transistor. Right there. It's not doing anything because the transistor is not in circuit, but everything else is there. The nice thing about this board, unlike a through-hole model, when you remove this transistor, you ain't got to do nothing else. On the through-hole models, you've got to remove the feed from the 8-volt line. You got to remove the bias. There's a whole bunch of little shit you got to do. The nice thing about these guys is just pull a transistor out if you got to put it in a base. I do not recommend this conversion for the faint of heart. You're talking about taking this thing down to an empty radio. I'm sorry I didn't get pictures of it when we did it, but the owner knows. My partner over here, what was it down to? 518? Bones. He said bones and crap. All right, so here we are. Now we have nice, clean receives. See if we find somebody talking. And there's usually a damn soul out there. Let's just do this. Break, channel 19 for a radio check. There you go. Moose, I'm making a video. Can you give me a little bit of audio so that I can show these guys what the audio on this thing sounds like compared to what... well, I can't compare it. I pulled the other board. But, I mean, at least now we can hear you. Just say a few words. Tell me how pretty I am.
You are a pretty mother. You are a handsome fella. No doubt about it. 409. Oh, boy. Yeah, he's a handsome fella. How's that?
Awesome, your check's in the mail. Okay, so there's the receive, guys. So now let's look at power. We'll shut the switch off. We are on a 250 watt scale. Okay. Now what happens here is, this is from Paradynamics. I have a certificate of calibration for every one of these scales. So I don't want to use a pre-scale or he's cheating. Shut up. I'll show you my certificate of calibration from coaxial dynamics. You can argue with them. So the way this meter is set up, we have peak off and on. We have 100. Now this pre-scaler takes this 100, makes it 250 or 500 to the right. Let's start at the 100 watt scale. Amplifier is off. Peak is on, because that's the only way we'll see it, because there's not a whole lot of power coming out, because it's designed not to overdrive the factory amp. That's a lovely 1 watt dead key. 12 watts of PEP. Now, let's go over here. Turn our switch on. Go back over here. Woo! 100 watts, can't hold it. Katie barred the door. So we're just going to go on to our 250 scale. Okay. Audio. That thing's banging 200 and 225. Damn near 250. 200 to 250 watts of peak, gentlemen. That's pretty respectable out of this radio. Guys, oh, mine does 325. You know what I asked them? How many times have you had back to the shop for that 325? Guys, this radio is only made to make a certain amount of power. If you want more out its ass end, call somebody like me, 123, Tech 9, get you a nice board built, and then replace it with something worth having. I'm not saying this isn't worth having. What I'm saying is it's a commercial board built by rules, made by people who don't talk on radios. Is that an easy way to say it? That's an easy way to say it. So there we go. Doc Nelson's radio lives. It is perfect. It works. Every mode is perfect. Receive is there. Transmit's there. Crystal clear. We are using an adapter, but he has Doc's original mic wired for this radio. Also, the meters had been changed. There was nothing in this box that was any good. Now, the lid was all scratched up. 518 is going to slide our freshly refurbished cosmetically lid on there for him. Guys, when was the last time you seen... Now, granted, we've got something, you know, it's not perfect. But considering the long scratches that were in it and this and that, it's still a nice textured Galaxy-like finish. We found a paint that does this. My lesson on this very first lid was, I've been having Joe at Joe's Auto Body do them. And he's just very busy. He's one of my best friends. But even he said, here, I'm going to train you how to do this. This is my first attempt. I did not sand it good enough here, as you can see. But considering that all you could see was scratches and the texture was gone, I think it's pretty freaking acceptable. And I think the owner's going to like it. So there it is, guys. We do have the handles. Yes, the handles will be going back on. All new screws. When we do a conversion like this, now, fortunately, the screws in this one aren't stripped. I don't know how that's happened, considering how many monkeys have been in this thing. Tech monkeys. So, I will be the last. I promise you that, because this radio is built the way it's supposed to be built. It's built better than when Ranger had turned it loose. I promise you that. I'll bet money on it. So I'm very proud of this radio. I hope the owner is as proud of it as I am. And we thank him for letting us keep this radio alive. There was nobody else that was going to do for him what I did for him at the price I did it for him for. And we ain't going to discuss that. However, if you've got a 90, let's look at some common sense numbers. Right now, you can't touch a $29.95 for less than $900. Now add shipping to that. And then take into account what you're actually going to get delivered. You're going to get this radio with a newer surface mount component, with a newer surface mount main board, and you're going to get a MOSFET output on the back. Now, don't get me wrong. MOSFETs are great inside radios to make forward swing to drive a real amp, just like this one does. This is a mid-generation radio. This is in between the through-hole models and the totally surface mount models with MOSFETs. This is kind of an in-between inbreed. And kind of the way I rebuilt it. But better. Something else you'll notice. Look at how nice and bright everything is when you put a nice new chassis in, guys. You guys see these radios after a few years, and they just look like the dog's been pissing on them or whatever. Everything on this radio is totally functional. Roger, beep, manual. We do split frequency. Block it, unlock it. Here. Guys, when you put a radio back together properly, that's what happens. Okay? If you've gone through all the work, you've transplanted a radio into the case, and it's not doing what it's supposed to do, then you still have issues as far as converting your mobile board to a base station board. Hear me well. Every one of these radios has the mobile board in it. So let's recap. Okay? Most of these 10-meter radios, most of these Galaxies, most of these Rangers, Cobras. Cobra 2000 is a 148. Galaxy Saturn, old school Saturn, is a Galaxy 88D HML. This is a 2950 DX. But there are slight modifications they do to put them inside the radios. So it can be done. We did not hot rod this one. This is a pure restoration for a specific purpose for a specific gentleman. So I hope his nephew enjoys it as much as he was intended to, because a lot of the wrong hands were in here. Look at that lid. We redid this lid. That's beautiful. We can redo all your lids now. They look just like they did when they came back from Galaxy. So there it is, a $29.90, brand new inside. We're going to change that silver knob right there because that looks stupid. But other than that, this bad fella is back to normal. Probably better than what Doc Nelson had when he bought it, and definitely better than it was after he let everybody stick their hands in it. It didn't have no business sticking their hands in this particular radio. So, guys, if you're not fluid in some of this stuff, don't stick your hands in it. If you want to stick your hands in it, do it with some tutelage. Okay, call somebody, go somewhere. If you can't find it, call me. We'll give you some free advice. But either way, this is the 90. This is a rebuild that is not hot rodded in any way, shape, or form. This is a pure restoration, which we do. Pure restorations as they came from the factory. That's what this gentleman wanted. Sorry, I'm making you guys seasick still. We're getting tripods, I promise. And but that's it. Here's a $29.90 that I don't think can be beat. I think it's going to outlive his nephew and me, probably. So here we go. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You're definitely going to hear it if you're in the Chicagoland area. 7 3s. Take care. Wash your damn hands.